Want this one too? You want more?
She is on the phone with 911 right now.
She said I'm rude and he's just threatening me
Look,
right now.
look at her. She said I just threatened her. What threat? What threat did I make towards you?
I'm Elizabeth.
What threat did I make towards you, ma'am? Huh? This is crazy. I've never. I already knew what it was when I first got here, though.
Here she is 1 minute later trying to sound distressed so the police can come quicker.
What?
I'm shaking right now. Please, please.
What in the world is this, boy? I ain't gonna lie. I've never in my life had to deal with no bullshit like this. Never in my life.
The biggest tools the white supremacists use to control the general population is jealousy. Not just fear of minorities, but fear of minorities being more successful than you as a white person. Because implicitly, deep down, they know that they have a significant advantage over every single immigrant, over black and brown people in the US. Because of factors like racism, all you have to do is look to the government and see how white and how conservative it is. But they cannot accept the fact that somebody who came to America 5 years ago didn't know any English and was able to work themselves into society, get a good paying job, and take care of their family is more successful than them. They can't accept the fact that there are people who have come to America and done better in a system that was built for them. That is why I believe that a large portion of racism and bigotry in general is rooted in jealousy. It's not just about white people wanting to hoard the resources, it's about white people wanting to hoard them so other people don't get them. They would rather see people of color fail than another white person succeed, because it's never been about success, it's been about preventing others from doing well. That sort of spite is what keeps them going.
Hey, you lost, boy?
No, I'm going to the race.
What race?
NASCAR race.
You going to NASCAR?
Yes, sir. A little bit.
You ain't lost, is you?
No, I'm good. I'm going to the race, sir.
Sure about that?
Yes, sir.
Find something safe to do, boy.
Dr. Hacker, it doesn't appear as though you really paint a very pretty picture of white people in general insofar as you see white-black race relations. Can you expound on that, sir?
Well, interestingly, you use the phrase race relations. I don't think there are many relations between black and white people. What I would say very simply is that those of us who are born with this pigmentation have certain privileges, things we can take for granted, we have the safety, the security, so we don't want to lose this. Now, this also means that, and here's the unpleasant part, that so much of our safety, security, status comes from putting down black people, saying we're not like them. We're Europeans, we're more highly evolved, we've got talents they don't have. And that's where you get, the flip side of this, which really is the ugly side of racism.
Mm-hmm. Well, how much does sex and sexuality really have to do with race relations, particularly between white men and black men?
Well, if you take white men and black men, let's take it two ways.
Okay.
If a white man is walking down the street and he sees a couple, a very attractive black man, really masculine, and with him a very attractive white woman, very white, we'll make her blonde, He looks at that woman and he wonders, this is the white man, what does she see in him? What do they do together? And it really drives us, up the wall, because she's a woman who could choose, you know, a white guy, but she chooses a black guy. And that really bothers us. And as a result, what we want to do is some way take that black man away, you know, because we begin to say, hey, is she having a better time with him, you know, in various ways than she can with me. And so he's competition for us. And you know how people react to competition.
White people always, this is something else that black people don't realize, that white people always feel one step away from black people taking over. They always feel in one step. If one step happened, black people would take over. And now we'll be out of everything. They always feel, and they feel it because, of course, we're blacks, Latinos, Native Indians, we always excel beyond them. And as we excel beyond them, of course, they feel like, you know, any minute we could take over.
Every time black Americans take a step forward in this country, white supremacists throw a tantrum. We call it progress. They call it a threat. And every era of advancement, every hard-won inch toward equality, has been met with a violent wave of backlash. So, let's talk about it. Donald Trump recently reposted a meme on Truth Social blaming Barack and Michelle Obama for worsening racism, saying they set America back 100 years. This, coming from a man whose entire public life has been steeped in racism, from refusing to rent apartments to black tenants in the 1970s, to calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, black and brown teenage boys at the time, even after they were proven innocent, to spreading the racist birther lie that President Obama wasn't born in America. And now, in 2025, he's just proving that the playbook never changed, only the players did. When enslaved people were freed, what came next? Reconstruction. Black men winning elections, opening schools, building communities. And after that, the Ku Klux Klan, voter suppression, lynching campaigns, and the violent overthrow of black-led governments across the South. Progress met with terror. I did make a video on Reconstruction a while back, so go check it out. When black veterans came home from World War I in uniform, having fought for democracy abroad, white mobs murdered them for daring to expect democracy at home. That became known as the Red Summer of 1919. In one of the most haunting examples, a black soldier named Wilbur Little was lynched in Georgia for refusing to take off his army uniform after stepping off the train that brought him home from war. He had risked his life for a country that still refused to see him as a man. And he wasn't the only one. Across the nation, white mobs attacked black veterans simply for wearing their uniforms in public, because those uniforms symbolized equality. And then there's Tulsa. When black prosperity blossomed in Tulsa's Greenwood district, a thriving neighborhood known as Black Wall Street, the backlash was swift and brutal. Greenwood wasn't just wealthy, it was successful on its own terms. Black doctors, lawyers, barbershops, grocery stores, newspapers, tailors, hotels, and a fully functioning economy built by black families who were shut out of white society. Some residents were millionaires in today's dollars, all of it built just 50 years after slavery was abolished. Proof that black excellence could flourish when given even a sliver of space. And that's exactly why white supremacists burned it all down. In 1921, after a false accusation against a black teenager, white mobs, many deputized by local police, stormed Greenwood. They looted homes, they set businesses on fire. Eyewitnesses reported private planes dropping incendiary bombs. Black residents were shot in the street or dragged from their homes. By the time it ended, over 35 square blocks were destroyed. Up to 300 black men, women, and children were killed. More than 10,000 black residents were left homeless overnight. And not a single white rioter was ever held accountable. Greenwood wasn't destroyed because of crime or chaos or uprisings. It was destroyed because white supremacists couldn't tolerate the sight of black wealth, black self-sufficiency, and black dignity thriving without white control. That's the pattern, and you see it again in the 1960s. After the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act finally outlawed segregation and protected black voting rights in 1965, white politicians had a problem. They could no longer legally defend segregation. They could no longer say, we don't want black people in our schools, or we don't want black people voting. So they rebranded their racism with new language. They called it law and order. Law and order wasn't about crime. It was a political weapon designed to frame black Americans as dangerous, disruptive, and undeserving without ever mentioning race. Barry Goldwater hinted at it in 1964. Richard Nixon perfected it in 1968. His advisors admitted on tape that law and order was designed to attract racist voters without sounding racist. And the policy fallout was devastating. Mass incarceration, the war on drugs, over-policing black neighborhoods, mandatory minimums, stop and frisk, all justified by coded language white voters found comforting. Ronald Reagan doubled down with states' rights and the racist welfare queen myth. Bill Clinton expanded the prison industrial complex even further, and Donald Trump wrapped it all in "Make America Great Again," a slogan rooted in turning back the clock on civil rights. Same playbook, same backlash, same message. Black progress is the threat. White grievance is the answer. So when Trump reposts a meme claiming the Obamas made racism worse, understand what he's really saying. That the sight of a black family in the White House, educated, poised, and powerful, was unbearable for people whose identity depends on feeling superior. Obama didn't make America racist. He revealed how deeply racism still runs. Trump is the backlash to it, the embodiment of everything this country refuses to face about itself. This is unfinished history. The same forces that once burned Greenwood, that fought to keep schools segregated, that silenced civil rights leaders, they never disappeared. They just put on suits and ran for office. If we want this cycle to end, white Americans have to stop pretending racism lives in the past. We have to face it in our laws, in our classrooms, in our neighborhoods, and in ourselves. Because silence is what keeps the system alive, and now is not the time for silence. Black Americans shouldn't have to prove their humanity again and again, while those who spread hate are rewarded with power. And yet here we are, a nation still built on denial, still terrified of accountability, still repeating the same cycle because too many white Americans would rather cling to denial than face the truth. But history doesn't move on its own. We do. So the question isn't whether the backlash will fade. It's whether we'll finally have the courage to end it, to confront what's right in front of us, to make sure this time progress doesn't have to start over again.
I will say, I think there's like a privilege, I know that sounds crazy, to being, having to do more than us and having gone through so much. I think that we've heard a lot about spirituality, but I feel like because you guys have gone through so much, there's like an enlightenment to you. I always feel such a draw and just so seen in a way that I don't feel as much with white people, I would say. So, I mean, I will just say that I feel like you guys are magnets, and I hope that your voice gets heard more, because I think that there has been a lot of trauma of just invisibility and your way of rising through it and still being survivors and stuff. I don't know, I've always felt like it's been super special, and I'm so thankful for the relationships that I've had.
Shit, not the bridge being built. Not the bridge!
I will never forget, let me just say, when I was younger, I will never forget looking over as a young kid and seeing a black man get out of a Mercedes, and something, I was like, that's success. And there was just always that vision. And I know it doesn't have to be like a superficial symbol, but there was just something implanted in me as a young kid. And I had a buzzed head when I was young, and I felt like I think I've allowed myself to see that, like, having shorter hair as a female, like, I haven't seen myself a lot. on, in the media. And I've heard that be a complaint of a lot of other people of not feeling that represented. So I think kind of feeling othered a lot in my own world in just a small way had made me feel like a kinship. And so I think that while there's privilege to being white, I feel like there's another privilege that doesn't get spoken about of actually having to suffer, because those are the people that really know how to have resilience and rise up and actually listen and just thrive. So
I know that we were just celebrating the bridge you made, and I don't want to tear it down, but I think I had a different response seemingly than the rest of the room to that. I know that you mean well by that, and I can see that you're very genuine. I have a really hard time sitting with the idea that the significant trauma that the Black community has experienced in this country has made us enlightened, and that there's like this beautiful spiritual quality that it's given us, because I think it feels, and maybe I'm just speaking to the way that's landed for myself, like a huge bypassing of how genuinely traumatic that is, to be like, well, look at you, like you're radiant now.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm
saying
that's
that
the way that
you've been through something, whereas like we're over here and who knows how much we've even been through.
Yeah, and like I'm not.
But you've also rolled your eyes at so many people that have been speaking, so I don't know if that's your.
I mean, a lot of really insane things have been said.
I don't know if that's your immediate response is just to roll your eyes. Might not have the best language with it, but I know that on a soul level, I feel I have a lot of awe and respect.
And I appreciate that a lot.
Take it where you can get it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All I'm saying is this idea that somehow having endured what the Black community has endured in this country and coming out the other end, barely surviving, there are people right now who are not surviving, that's somehow a privilege is ludicrous. And maybe what you said completely landed wrong with me, but that's how I took all of that, and that's all that's all.
During the antebellum period, all the way going back hundreds of years. So I find it fascinating, and the psychological research has found recently that white folks in particular tend to view Black men as bigger than they are, older than they are, and more aggressive than they are. There was a study done not too long ago with white folks, not even the Darren Wilsons of the world, forget him for a minute, done with white liberal folks, liberal in the sense that when they tested them for overt bias, they didn't have any. But then they took these non-biased, quote unquote, white folks, hooked them up to brain scan imaging machines and started flashing really fast, 85 millisecond subliminal images on a computer. So fast that your conscious mind doesn't even know what you saw, but your subconscious does. Some of the images were really meaningless, a blade of grass, a bunny rabbit, whatever, a bouncing ball. It didn't really do anything on the brain image machine. But then they showed a Black male face for 85 milliseconds. And that part of the brain that responds to fear, anxiety, and stress lit up like a Christmas tree as long as that image was on the screen. And then when it was gone, the reaction went away. That was among quote unquote liberal white folks. That was among non-racist in the traditional sense white folks. So if that can happen even to supposedly open-minded folks, imagine how it's gonna happen to a guy who by his own admission didn't like the neighborhood he was policing in. He said, nobody likes Ferguson, nobody likes that neighborhood, it's a bad neighborhood. If that's your attitude about a place that you're asked to go and police and the people you're supposed to work with, you can't tell me that you haven't internalized those biases, because liberal white folks did, and he's no liberal. Right?
Damn, man, I'm gonna lie. Hearing somebody sit there and confidently say white people are superior genuinely made me cringe. I got sick in my stomach when I heard that. I mean, how can you sit down and say such kind of thing? And for other people to see you saying it and you really feel comfortable, confident about what you're saying. I mean, I really felt sick in my stomach. Not because it was edgy or shocking, but because it sounded so deeply ignorant. And then hearing him reduce an entire culture down to violence while completely ignoring history, that is insane. I had to pause for a second because the arrogance was unreal. The arrogance was unreal. And what really got me was how fast people in those responses started tearing apart that logic with actual facts and common sense. You can't ignore slavery segregation, redlining, stolen innovation, and systematic barriers. Then turn around and act like the outcomes happen in a vacuum. You can't do that. It doesn't make any sense at all. That's what makes the conversation like this exhausting. Some people want to talk about race while pretending history started yesterday. That's what I don't see getting now. They ignore the history. They ignore to go and do their due diligence research for taking their camera, recording, and saying so much nonsense online. That doesn't make any sense, guys. It doesn't. And let me be rude too. Some of the clapbacks were brutal, funny, and deserved, but beneath all the jokes was a very ugly truth. It was really crazy. There are still people who genuinely believe racial superiority is normal thinking. I mean, in this generation, can you believe that? That should bother everybody. We've come too far as a society to still be entertaining this nonsense in 2026. With all the technology innovations, with all the AI that you could go and do your research to know history, but you still find people saying nonsense online. You feel the ignorance from their speech or from whatever they are saying. Like, what is so difficult there? You could just take your phone or your laptop, whatever, and you go and do your research before you come online and talk about things you don't know at all. In this generation, in this year, this is crazy. Anyways, I appreciate you all watching this with me because this one definitely had me fired up. Let me know what you think in the comments, but keep it respectful because these conversations matter. And if you rock with honest reactions like this, hit that subscribe button because we are only getting started, man. There's so much for us to uncover. Things are really getting crazy out here. I'm not gonna lie, hearing somebody sit there so confidently say white people are superior, genuinely made me cringe. It made me sick. I can't hear that and just sit like that. I can't. Not because it was edgy or shocking, but because it sounded deeply ignorant. And then, hearing him reduce an entire culture down to violence while completely ignoring history, I had to pause for a second because the arrogance was crazy, was unreal. And what really got me was how fast people in those responses started tearing apart the logic with actual facts and common sense. Can't ignore slavery, segregation, redlining, stolen innovation, and systematic barriers, then turn around and act like the outcomes happen in a vacuum. That's what makes these conversations like this exhausting. Some people want to talk about race while pretending history started yesterday. And let me be real to you guys. Some of the clapbacks were brutal, funny, and deserved, but beneath all the jokes was a very ugly truth. There are still people who genuinely believe racial superiority is normal, is a normal thing. That should bother everybody. In 2026, how can you still think about other kind of thing? It's not normal, guys. It's not normal. Seeing how people are still ignorant with all the technology innovations that are out here. That should bother everybody. We've come too far as a society to still believe entertaining this nonsense in 2026. We should be talking about solutions, progress, education, and accountability, not recycle racisms with a microphone. That's nonsense. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you all for watching this with me because this one definitely had me fired up. Let me know what you think in the comments, but keep it respectful because these conversations matter. And if you rock with honest reactions like this, hit the subscribe button because we are only getting started. Thank you very much for watching this video to the end, and see you in the next video. Together we stand strong.